Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the show. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. We're doing a little bit of Friday night instead of Thursday night this week. As everybody knows, I'm having a little one in October, so this room behind you here will be my next one's room, not the studio anymore. So me and Eric are adding on to my house right now. So we were trying to get some stuff done last night, so we postponed the show until tonight.
You're going to have to build a studio like I am.
What, a 70 by 40 studio?
Yeah, hopefully a little faster than me, though.
Yeah. Well, this is hopefully going to be done by the end of the weekend. So I hope it's faster than yours. Anyway, everybody, this is actually my cousin, Adam Brooks.
How you
And
doing, Adam?
everybody. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good.
he has a property he bought. How long ago did you buy that?
Oh, it's probably been 4 years ago. I bought that 20 acres back there.
Yeah. And then you already owned a little bit, and
Yep.
your dad owns a little bit, and you got some property next to it you can hunt.
Yep.
And it makes it for a pretty good piece of land, and it's has a lot of different features on it that make up a pretty good property. So we wanted to show everybody, and you kind of always seem to have some bucks on it too every year.
It does seem like it holds some deer. There's bucks and does.
Yeah.
Good for the kids.
Yeah, right. A lot of deer there. But we wanted to get Dan on here and see what he thought of it and see how we can maybe do things better. And then me and Adam here shortly may go out and kind of look at some of the areas that Dan's pointing out and see if we can go film some of it and whatnot. And that'll be on the Beast channel then. Does that sound good to you, Dan?
Sure.
How you been doing, Dan? I haven't really talked to you much. Me and Eric have been busy, so I haven't got to chit-chat with you.
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Did you get out any scouting this last few days?
No, it was really hot today, and I decided to just work on some editing and putting some stuff together. Just trying to find some shows. I got so much old footage. I'm always trying to find something good to use because I know nobody else likes that stuff, but that's the stuff I like. So I try to put stuff together.
I think they like it well enough. It's a lot of it's good stuff. You always because I put up some of the shorts that we have on the channel, and I just shocked sometimes at some of the stuff that you dig up. You filmed everything.
Yeah, I never deleted anything either. I've been kind of trying to delete stuff as I go. I actually have huge hard drives full of footage.
Yeah.
I was thinking about doing a video just of T-shirts, all the T-shirts I wore.
Yeah, you could do that. Just like a montage of 1,000 different T-shirts that you've had. I saw someone that recognized me and you or something the other day, and that's the first thing they said. They're talking about your T-shirts. So
I actually I was at a restaurant and somebody kept looking at me, and they finally go, "Are you Dan Infold?" I says, "Yeah, how you doing?" And they go, "What shirt is he wearing? What shirt?" And they go, "I'm at a restaurant. I'm just wearing what I wear."
Yeah. Disappointed them.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny.
Yeah, that's funny. Anyway, you want to pull Adam's picture up here and
sure, let's take a look
on the map, and then we can we'll show you some of the bucks Adam has killed on this property and other ones too here in a little bit as well. And Adam has a bunch of stories about me that you guys will probably be real interested in. I think I started hunting with Adam probably when I was 9 years old, so he was one of the first people to. Well, I was with you when I shot my first
deer with a bow and your first turkey.
Yeah. So
he was a lot different back then. He's not the same hunter as what he was when I got to experience that when he was a little younger and myself as well.
Yeah. We were trying to figure it up. It was like probably 22 years ago or something like that. We were trying to figure out how old we were.
Well, that'd be a good start before we get into things. I'd like to hear.
Well, which one?
Well, preferably the first one and the best one. That's
yeah.
Well, probably one of the best ones. He reminded me a while ago when we were talking. I forgot he was not quite in as good a shape back then, when he was younger, and
chunky.
The fat kid.
Yeah, he was a little bit, but of course, he was young too. I give him heck now, but he did pretty well for being 9, 10, 11 years old, and we had Viper climbing stands back then.
The Summit Vipers.
And he would be packing it in there, and of course he'd be slower than what I wanted him to go, and I wanted to get there, and so finally he'd have to stop and rest, and so I just eventually grabbed both stands and the guns and throw them all on my back and just walk them all in for him so we could get in there and get to hunting. But we had the best one. We were hunting a property, one of my buddy's properties, which is what I used to hunt a lot back then. And we had went in the night before and put the climbing stands on our trees so that we were ready to go, and we didn't have to do that in the morning for him to try to speed things up a little bit. And so we're going in that morning, and my stand actually ended up being before we got to his. And I was like, Josh, do you want me to walk you to your stand and then make sure you find it, and then I'll come back to mine and do it that way? And no, I know where it's at. I'll be fine. I can get it. I'm like, are you sure? Yep. I know right where it's at, right where we put it. We just go around the corner, go in the woods, and then the next corner, and it'll be there. I said, all right. You sure?
Josh, sure.
Yeah. And so I said, go around this corner, go to the next bend, the next corner in the woods, it bends back to your right, and just go straight in the woods there, and it'll be in the woods about 10 or 15 yards. I got it. So he leaves, and I climb up my stand. I'm sitting there waiting, and just turns daylight, and I'm looking, and I look over my left, and here comes Josh walking around the corner. I was like, oh man, just turned daylight, perfect time in the morning, and he walks up the bottom of the stand. Hey, yeah, couldn't find your stand, could you? No, I don't know where it's at. I walked everywhere. I walked in the woods. I walked up and down the woods. I walked all over the place. I'm like, all right, I'll be right down. And so we got down, and then we hunted that property either the next morning or that next evening.
It was next evening.
And I ended up going across the field and setting to where I could see. It was a long way across the field, but I could see where he was at. And we get in there, and we're maybe in our stand half hour, 45 minutes, possibly.
Not very long.
And next thing I know, here Josh walks out of the woods, and he's walking along the other side of the woods. And I'm like, what in the world? What is he doing now? Like, it's daylight. He's got to be able to find that stand.
Yeah, it was an evening hunt.
Yeah. And I got to watch him walk all the way along the woods and then all the way across the cornfield. It took 10 minutes or so. And I'm just thinking, what in the world's he doing now? And so then he gets over there that time, and he looks up, and I said, what'd you do now? And he said, I think I got one. I said, oh, do you shoot at one? Or he goes, well, I shot one. All right. Do you think you got it? And do you shoot it well? And he goes, well, I shot it and it went down, and it's tried to get back up. I shot at it again and missed, and shot at it again and missed. And then did you?
I got down. I ended up getting down and shooting it. Yeah.
You run out of arrows.
Yeah, I think so. It was a cluster. I don't know. I was 11. I think that's how it went. I definitely had to get down and shoot it, though. I remember that, and I remember missing it a couple times after I'd spined it or whatever I ended up doing.
But he did get it.
Yeah.
And I was happy to climb down that time and go help him get that one out. And that was his first deer he'd ever shot with his bow.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's killed a few since then. And
was it a doe or a buck or what?
It was a doe.
Just a little doe.
Yeah, it was a little doe. But
do you remember my dad always had me shooting mechanicals back then? Mm-hmm. Those little they're called punch cutters. They had the ferrule. All the blades were inside the ferrule, and it had like a little button. Whenever the point was like a button, and it pushed out. Do you remember those, Dan?
Yeah.
Well, Adam. He wasn't a big fan of mechanicals or something. Do you remember cutting my bands off them things?
Did I?
Yeah, because you thought they were this is like a field point. I remember you cutting the bands off of them for me.
I used Muzzies.
Yeah. I used those shortly after that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the only
back in the day. Muzzy was the tip to use.
Yeah. I remember doing that too. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. You know, my dad put them on for me. Yeah. The first turkey wasn't as not as good as the story, but it was just I was probably 15 or 16 then. I halfway could hold myself accountable in the woods, but
yeah, that one we set up in a ground blind where we thought they were going to fly out on the field, and of course, like hunting, it didn't quite go the way we planned, and they were on the next field over, and we took a long journey around and got on the other side and snuck in the woods, and they ended up walking right in there to us. I don't think we even called.
No,
but we were sitting there, and that Tom was, and I'm not, I haven't done a whole lot of turkey hunting in my life. I used to work in the ag industry, so I just I was always busy when turkey season was, but Tom was probably 12 to 13 yards in front of us, and I'm like, Josh, if you can see him, shoot him. You know, we're whispering right next to each other, and he's like, I can't see him. I'm like, he's right in front of us, like he's right there. He's like, I can't see him. It's like, well, I can. I could shoot him right now if you want me to.
Yeah.
It's like, no. And then apparently it was behind a tree that he couldn't see him, and it stepped out, and he shot it and got his first turkey as well. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you remember sitting in that ground blind and it started pouring down the rain. Yeah. And we tried to it's to make a move on the turkey. We just lifted it above our heads and we walked towards them.
I think we walked
with the ground blind on our back.
I don't know if we walked. I don't think we walked to the turkeys. I think we walked out.
It might have been. I can't remember
when we were way back in the field, and we just picked it up and walked all the way to the truck with it because it was pouring rain. But
I don't think either one of us fancies ourselves as the best turkey hunters in the world. Usually just stumble into one. When do you start turkey hunting, Dan? You got to be soon, right?
Yeah, in like a week or so, I think. Yeah, I think not this next week, but the week after I go. I was out this morning at dawn glassing. I saw a pretty good pack of them over by Dave's. Probably about 26 or 27 of them. And there was 4 real big toms and 1 Jake in the pack.
Yep.
So how many 4 toms are all good.
How many tags you got this year?
I got 2, and Rick's got 2 or 3. I don't know how many he's got.
They have their Wisconsin's turkey season's weird. You got 4 different seasons, right, or 5?
Yeah, we got 5 seasons, 5 1-week seasons.
Yeah, so you can draw tags, so you can get multiple tags.
Really? That's interesting.
So if you apply for a tag, and if you get drawn, then you can also buy bonus tags, extra tags, leftovers. But the leftovers are always for the end of the season because nobody wants the last two seasons. So if you buy extras, they're usually for the last 2 seasons, sometimes 3 seasons, depending on what zone you're in, and what they have left over. So it's kind of a cluster because you got to call it an exact time, and you got to get in a line to buy it. Where it'd be nice if it was they just gave you 2 tags.
Right. Yeah, I've always thought it's pretty confusing, but I don't know.
It benefits certain people because if a person can't call from work, you can't get you can't get the tags and stuff. So it's kind of if you can't call and sit and wait on your phone, you won't get the bonus tags. So it's not a fair system for the bonus tags.
Yeah, that's what me and Tyler had to do when I got mine for, I don't know, it's the second to last season, whatever it is in the May. That's what we had to do. We had to sit around till at 9:50 we could log in, then we got our number to log in at 10, and it was kind of weird, but I mean it worked. But if you were a guy working, if I was at work that day and had to do something and I missed it, that would suck.
Right.
I guess that's just life though, right?
Yeah.
I was going to show everybody before we got into this. I don't know. Maybe I'll think of other stories that Adam can share with everybody. Here's some of the bucks Adam's killed. You didn't kill this one. You killed this one on a different property, right?
Yeah. That was actually on the property that we had our wonderful experience there. That was
same one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where you shot the doe.
Yeah. Let's see here. Here's your. And then this one was killed
That was
a
killed
couple
on
years ago, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago on a property that
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
Not up. I don't see it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's not up there.
sorry guys. My for some reason there we go.
Yeah. The one
Yeah.
on the right there is the one I killed.
Yeah.
On this property we're going to talk about today.
Dan, he killed this one on a deer drive out at that property you went hunting with me out there on that big one. Great
There's
big
some good
long
browse on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And then let's see here.
Cole.
Yeah, I'll get Cole's up here. Let's do this. That way I don't have to get off here.
And then both of these that my second oldest son killed were on this property as well.
Yeah.
This was his first deer he ever shot. We shot it with a crossbow.
Yeah. Very good
Pretty
one.
good first buck.
And then this one too.
And then this was the next one.
No.
Nice.
Yep. There's definitely a lot of potential on this property.
Yeah.
So let me pull up the actual property itself. And Dan, you've been looking at it this evening a little bit, haven't you?
I took a glance at it, yeah.
All right.
15 minutes.
So essentially, if you guys can see, this green dotted line here is the entire property here that Adam can hunt. He actually can't hunt this little woods right here, I found out. So disregard that. But I don't know. You want to say anything before we start about it or anything, or you want Dan to jump in?
Oh, if either way, if Dan wants to start there, and then I could chime in when he.
Well, Dan, if you were going to jump into this place, where would you start?
Okay, so I know nothing about where you're hunting or anything about how you hunted it, but looking at that property, some things stand out to me. If you go up, scroll up to the top of the property.
Yep.
Right up there. So in that right-hand corner, one thing I noticed right away is that looks swampy or low or something. It looks brushy and thick. So if I zoom in on that, I see the small treetops, and it almost looks like there's a little creek that runs through there, like where that creek shows on the top. It just stops, but the line keeps going. You see that? So it looks like it's wet and low. And at the very top in the corner, I see some tree heads in there that look like they kind of merge into that thick stuff. I bet you that's really good bedding.
Right here?
Maybe a little higher than that.
Oh, right here?
Yeah, up in there. And I would be willing to bet that whole thing holds some deer. And I would probably look at the outskirts of that. I'd walk the edge of it and look for where the deer come in and out of that thick stuff. And I'd set up accordingly. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The edge of the thick.
So you're talking about walking this transition right here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not so much at the back of the property, because I think you just blow everything out of there. But like right above where your arrow is, where the trees stop and the brush starts.
Yeah.
And then, along the backside of the thick, I'd find the trails that come out of there. I don't necessarily think I'd set up right on the edge of the thick, unless I knew exactly where they were bedding. I'd probably set up a little further back, because they might be right on that edge.
I think it's a pretty small piece of. You're 130 yards.
Too big. Yeah,
no, right. Right. So it's 130 yards wide. So it's bigger than I envisioned it.
Okay, and then after looking at that, if you go to the other side of that same top of the property, that edge, the point that juts out, I'd probably take a look there and see if there's any bedding going on there. There might or might not be, but I wouldn't doubt it. It's a nice spot for a deer to sit where he wouldn't get harassed, where he'd be overlooked, and he could kind of watch the property.
Yeah, because Adam, you park right here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dan, you think they bed here on a north wind, right?
I do, yeah. Mm-hmm. And watch the open field.
Yeah. Can you explain to people why real quick?
Well, pretty often when I look at people's properties, I find deer like to watch to observe where people go in from. And especially if it's a spot where people kind of overlook it. And that looks like one of those spots to me, like nobody would think to really hunt there. It's pretty close to the farm. But it is a pointed feature of land, and they like to bed on the points where they can monitor danger coming from the woods behind them up the point, and they can monitor the fields around the outside. They kind of know where danger is going to come from in a pointed situation. And I can see them sitting in there kind of monitoring the farm.
Yeah. How thick
That
do you
doesn't
know how big
mean
they
it's
are?
there for sure, but it'd be a place I'd look at right away.
Yeah.
That one right
Yeah.
there. It's
Mhm.
pretty decently thick on the point there. Kind of opens up. You can see the trees
Yeah.
back in there, a little opened up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But he's right on up there on the right corner. It's really thick back in there. They cleared it out there at one point, or part of it. It's probably where that actual path is there. Yep. And it is really thick in there.
Now, you
Is
shot
it
at a
water
buck.
or is it dry and thick?
It's dry and thick. It's not. It's actually a little higher up there. It drops down to those where you see that. Yeah, down into there.
All right.
It's high there, and then it drops off.
So this is just like a
Yeah, they had cut a road
path?
through there with a dozer or something back, several years ago.
but it's all grown up and
Yep.
thick now.
Yep.
Yep. You shot at a buck this year, like sitting where were you at? Down
When I
here?
shot, I was all the way down. Yeah. Go all the way to.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you were sitting down here.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were sitting in that stand me and
No,
Cole sat
that's
in.
the one
See,
where
now
I
you
was
ruined it for me because that was my best corner to pick.
So I'm trying to let him.
Oh, I'm sorry. I brought it up because I thought you were sitting in that stand you got right here. I thought that buck came out of this.
That one I shot, the one on the right of that picture there. I was sitting in that one and shot him out there.
Oh, okay.
That's
Where'd he
the one
come
I
out
shot
of?
from there. He come out of over here.
Okay. I wonder if they could bed in here though and just
Yeah.
circle around to get downwind coming.
Let Dan go to his corner now.
Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Well, before we leave this spot though, Dan, if me and Adam go in here and we find good buck beds in here,
Mhm.
I mean, what would you suggest setting up?
Well, now if I found
Adam?
beds in that thick area, I would really look at if it's really thick, the bucks are going to be on the edges of it, which I think they'd be towards the top where that green mark is.
Yeah.
But I don't know that for sure. They could be on the edges anywhere around it. But I'd try to find the bedding and the sign of big bucks, and then I'd look at the trails coming out, and I'd just do what I always do. I'd go as far as as close as I can, where I can set up without them knowing I'm there. Basically, scent, sound, sight, and find a setup. So I'd also look at that point that we looked at and just see if there's something at that tip of that point, right? There either is or there isn't. But if there is, there might be a good setup further back on the point where it starts to open up into bigger woods. Like the deer might get up and go backwards. But the trick to getting back there would be a big circle, because the deer's potentially watching you, right? Well, not necessarily, just be a long walk, right?
Yeah.
But the trick would be to know if one's bedding there, and then you can figure out how to do it, right?
Yeah. The hard part is he can't, his property line's right here, so.
Yeah, but he could go like around towards the edge of that thick stuff and go in. And
true.
Much go in, and then he can go into the woods and go over.
Kind of backdoor him.
But as is often the case, sometimes you got to burn a good spot to hunt another good spot, and in some cases you might want to hunt that thicker spot first and then try that, depending on if there is bedding at both spots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But before we move down, is there anything he can tell us about the area we already looked at up here, as far as?
Go ahead.
He said it was thick, like I said, but you can see that. Did you have any interactions with deer in those areas?
Yeah, they. I've debated and thought about putting a stand over here for years, and I need to put one over there. But yeah, they come out over here, out of this one and out of this side a lot. I mean, there's a bunch of deer that come out of this woods and the thick stuff here, and then they also come out over here quite a bit. So there's definitely, like you said, when you're saying that, I'm like, yep, that's one he's just seeing from the air that there definitely holds a deer in these areas.
I hunted here once, and there's just a pile of deer that came out right here.
Yep.
It's hard if they come off of that property line because the trees are all in the neighbors.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, true. But if there's a big buck lane in here, you could probably sit somewhere around here and hopefully
Like
catch
in the
him.
corner or something. Yeah.
Yeah, or even I don't know if there's trees right here you could get in or something, but be around the property line. This guy lets you go look for deer though, right?
He'll let me shoot when we get down. Talking about the little lower part, that's his field as well there, and I've got permission to shoot onto his property, but not hunt on it. So,
oh, that's something. All right,
that's still pretty good.
Yeah, you want to move down, Dan?
You scroll down the property now, and you look at that stuff that you got to the right of the screen there. What I kind of see is right where you got your arrow there, where you had it, in that corner, where he already alluded he shot a deer. I see everything kind of coming together there. You got the draws all coming together to that creek line, probably a dried creek most of the year, right?
Yep.
But they kind of meet in that corner of that field, so that's going to be like the low spot, and it's going to draw a deer right through. That's a pretty good funnel. But what I see for bedding is when I look at those little fingers connecting down to the lower property. You see that going through that one. When I look at those, the one that you got the arrow on now, that one's a dead end point. So I could see bedding at that point, and I could see it along the edges towards the point based on the wind. And on the next one that goes down into the neighbor's property a little, I bet you along the edges of that the draw, depending on how deep it is and if it's thick on the edges, right in the field edges, on one side or the other, there'd be bedding. And then the one over, I look at that one and I see two little mini points coming off kind of on the sides, and I bet you those tips got bedding. But all of those, if a deer comes up those draws, if you're bedding towards the tips of them or on the sides of them, they come up and if they turn to the left, they're going through that funnel, right?
Yeah.
So my very starting point would be right towards the corner of that field, wherever all those trails come together, I think. Right, right, somewhere right in there where everything kind of comes together. I'd definitely have a setup, and I'd start there. And if there's fresh sign and I didn't see anything, I might move to the next head of the next draw. Correct, right there.
Yeah.
And if I didn't see anything, I'd probably go to the head of the next draw, right there. And I'd be curious to if you go a little further back, there's that little connecting tree line. Nope, the other way, towards the other way. Yep, right there. That kind of connects towards your neighbors. It all depends on if your neighbors are real active outside. The top of that might hold some bedding. That might be a little overlooked kind of area. I would take a look at that, a glance.
Yeah. What is their property line, Adam? Is it? Do you own all that?
No, it comes. Where'd it go?
Sorry, here. Get it back over for you.
So it comes right, basically that field edge, and comes in and goes about right into there.
Okay. Yeah. So you could.
Yeah. And there's another
trails coming out of there up at the top, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And there's another little house that's kind of covered up in here that you can't see real well there, but.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I was going to point out is if you go over to that very first field in that series of the green fields right there, if you go to the other side of it, there's a tree line that connects your neighbor's woodlot to the woodlot above it. Now, I think you said you couldn't hunt that woodlot on the top, right?
Right here, this one?
Yeah. So my property line runs, which my dad owns this field, but that fence row basically runs straight to there. So that's kind of where I can hunt in here.
So right where you got that arrow there.
Yep.
I like that spot because I think that's a potential kill spot where it connects everything. But I really like it for an observation spot, but you still got a chance to kill something there because you could watch across that field and see if anything's moving around by those points, depending on what crop is planted. You could potentially see if deer are hanging on those points, and coming out a little funny, like across the green or whatever. Especially if you can go across your dad's field to get that, and so you're not messing with that inside corner up at the top or anything. And basically that's about what I have for this property.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Adam,
was going to say too, if you go back up here on the top of the property, you just said you couldn't look at it. Now, when I looked at this, I thought you could hunt it because of the way it was marked. But right at the top of that, you see where all that kind of creeks come together? That's the lowest point of the field. I wouldn't doubt it if the bucks come out right there above that into that green field, just because that's the lowest point. So if they're bedding anywhere on your neighbors there, I could see them coming out there, depending on how active that house is. But they tend to like to come out at the low points because the thermals will drop right down to there.
Yeah.
So, based on that information, does that match anything you're seeing when you hunt?
Yeah. Yep. So I've got, as far as kind of where I've got some stands at now too, I do have one here. And then I've got the one I hunt the most is about right there.
That's the spot I like the best on the property.
Yeah. And that's where I got one. And then I do have one back in, let's see, be right in here is where I've got got another one on this side. And then, I've got one right up here in this fence row as well. So that's where I've got all of them right now on this side of the road of the property. And they come out, you see a lot of deer when I'm sitting here that come out of this woods and come in out behind you from here. And then we've got deer, like you said, they bed into this area and they come out this side, or they will come up and come out over into this field a lot as far as where you're seeing them at the most. But and then what was it? And then I think we're going to talk about food plots a little bit there.
Yeah,
you want to go across the road first?
Yeah, let's do that first. Dan, you may not recognize this, but he also can hunt this little patch right back here.
Oh, okay.
And let's see here. Yeah, you got a like a shooting house right here, right, Adam?
Yeah, it's right about there. So I can shoot onto this field as well. But that's where this spot here is where Cole's killed his two bucks out of that shooting house there.
Where do they usually come from? The bucks?
They come out of this side.
Okay.
Back up. Oh, I don't know how far you want to go there, but
it's fine. Just they seem to come out of that little finger in that little area.
This little finger that connects going off to the left looks like a really good bedding area.
Yeah.
On the edges of that. Wouldn't doubt it if they come into that property that you're hunting.
And you can't see into that hardly at all from where I'm at. So I'm sure, like you said, they travel that a lot. And whenever I see them, they're either coming out over here or they're coming out right next to us for the most part. We do get some that'll bed in this area over here that's pretty thick. And this is all pretty swampy and wet back in here. So,
yeah.
And then that creek runs right through it there behind. That's my mom and dad's house there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little property. You wouldn't think much of it, and then Cole's killed both of his bucks there.
Yep.
It's pretty small. You want to talk about the food plots now with Dan?
Yeah. Can I ask him up? You want to just say where you think you would like to have some, Dan, or you want me to tell you where?
Well, I'll tell you where I would put them, and you can tell me where you have them.
Okay.
Just above my favorite spot, I would have one in that corner.
Right here?
Yeah, right above there. Yep, right in that corner. Somewhere right in there. Maybe back a little bit to pull them through the funnel a little. I don't know. But I'd find someplace right in there to have one. Maybe right in front of that stand I said would make a good observation stand. I'd probably have one in front of there someplace. One side or other of that tree line, depending on where the stand is exactly. I think you were a little higher than the corner, so probably inside of that green field. which would be good because then you'd be looking towards those points. You'd see if anything else was coming. Go up. So I'm assuming you have one in front of that tree line that you're hunting, because that would make sense if you have a stand there.
So some of them, they're farm fields.
Yeah. So you can't put one there?
Some of the places, yeah, like right there, I can't put one there.
Okay.
And then over, and I wanted to see where you thought, and I can't. This one's farmed as well, right into this area.
Could you put something on that walking path you have, like right through here? I know, and I don't know.
Probably it could a little bit. They didn't farm this little nook here. I put something in late last year, but it didn't take off in time by the time I got it in there. But
so the only thing that could be a problem, maybe not, is if you put one there, if you pulled them away from the upper corner, if you split your deer up instead of having them all on one trail,
coming in.
Yeah. So if you got deer coming in up here, I mean, if they all go through there to get to there, then it's fine. But I've seen it where people put food plots out near a good area because it's a good spot for a food plot, but it's not the better spot for position wise.
Yeah.
And they split up their deer to travel. You know what I mean? They break it up.
Yeah.
But I don't know that would happen. I'm just saying that's a possibility. It's hard to see. If I couldn't use the fields, it's hard to see where I'd put a food plot.
Yeah.
It's like being in the woods.
Yeah, and it's hard. I guess that'd be tough for you since you don't know where. And well, this one, so where I do have one, this is such a narrow little field here, that they didn't care to farm this back in here. So I got a clover and chicory, and probably about here back is clover and chicory. And I got permission. This has got, you can't really see it there, but the creek had got dammed up and it washed out big ditches in this lower part of this field. I mean, like 6 foot deep.
Okay.
And so they're not going to farm it anymore. And I talked to the landowner of this one, and he gave me permission to put a food plot down here in this corner. So that's one of my intentions this year. And then also this little nook right here.
Mm-hmm.
They don't farm that as well. So I thought about putting a little one there.
My only concern would be with those two there,
spreading them out,
is if those deer are bedding in that areas, you could be pushing them off the property.
Mm-hmm.
But that's easy enough to look at when you got Josh in there and see if there's bedding on those points and stuff. But like say that middle field you said isn't getting farmed right there.
Yeah.
If that food plot was pushed up to the top, right at the top of that, up there someplace, I think that would be better, because then the deer could bed down further off those little points. They could bed the edges of that, and they'd feel freer about walking up to that inside top end. You know what I mean?
Okay. And it does go. It goes all the way back. It goes from here back to there is where I've kind of got it.
Okay. All right.
And then they farm this front half of it here. But that's kind of where. What would your recommendation be if I got, I've got clover and chicory here.
Mm-hmm.
This one down here, if I put it in, what would you recommend down there?
Well, I guess it depends on how big of a space you have, and I really like clover mixes, because I think it, especially if it's low and wet, you said it gets washed out, because I think that they tend to hold a lot more food in a smaller space. Like if you have a lot of deer, a small space, chicory or something like that will get eaten right up to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess just having a good variety around the property is good,
And this one here it's a clover chicory mix.
So you already got clover in there, right?
Yeah, what I got on that one, which the clover's doing pretty well in it. Would you put some kind of brassicas or something different down there? Or?
If you get enough room for them, I think that wouldn't hurt.
It's probably going to be, half acre, 3/4 of an acre.
You got plenty, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Dan, do you think it's worth putting a food plot right here still? I mean, is that a good thing to have food right there, I guess?
I'd worry about it a little bit. I think to me, I'd want to know where the deer bed before I put a food plot there. Because I'm a little worried that that looks like it has the potential to be really good bedding if left alone and just hunted on the mows. I think if it were me, I'd rather probably, if they're bedding there, draw them more towards the corner or something and hunt them in between. If it were me, but it really depends on how getting into the woods and seeing what it looks like.
Yeah,
it's like this finger here. It's not as thick as what it may look in this picture. It's just it's not real thick on that one.
Pretty wide open.
Yeah, it's pretty good,
what
especially
about
up
point for those fingers coming off of her.
This back in here?
No, the first one.
This little like thumb right there.
This one, that one. Now that's pretty wide open. There's only a few trees there. I thought about taking that one, eventually if somebody wanted to clear that out, but that's not quite as thick there. It gets thicker when you get back into this one, and then back into this area is back in here.
I have a tendency to believe that deer want to be more in the thinner blocks of timber, like the strips, than they do in the tops. Like I think rather than a food plot in there, I think maybe a high grass would be better.
Like creating some more bedding right there.
And this one here.
Yeah, and then putting the food plot on top there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then food plot up here.
Yeah, because typically on a property, Dan, like food's not the issue. It's usually there's not enough cover and bedding, right?
Right, especially in farmland. Yeah.
Yeah, because they can eat everything on that farm. You got
a lot of oak there too.
There's some oak in there, so you got some oak in there, and then of course, obviously when they're farmed, when the fields are out there, they've got a lot of places to eat there, but.
Yeah,
that's a pretty open woods. I think high grass would be better for you than a food plot in that opener. You could still have a food plot in there if you wanted to, but I'd have it up towards the top of it.
Up in that, right up in here.
Yeah, good access to it, right? Not as big as what you said, just a smaller one. Maybe just go straight to a clover or something, because then you don't need much acreage.
Then clover there, and then put some kind of big grasses in this area.
Yeah, so that they can bed along them tree lines and stuff.
Okay.
And in the grass, basically. Depending on how open the woods is, I think they would probably bed in there quite a bit.
And my typical entry point here, this is my house over here.
Okay. All right.
And so, we come across the field here most of the time. And then there's a opening there. If you watch that video when Josh took Cole in youth season last year, this is where they walk through, and then we mowed an area around the field there where you can walk in and walk into the stand here. And this is a field where Cole and Josh were sitting, and they shot across here at that doe. But
yep. Is there anything wrong with coming in from right there, Dan, you think?
Oh, I don't think so, no. I guess if you got a west wind, it'd be very bad, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So that would be the hard part. I was imagining an access from above.
Yeah, you could do that.
If you had an access from above, then you maybe get above it on a west wind, where you could still have say a southwest. You could get up in that corner without ever having your wind hit the deer.
Yeah.
Unless they're bedding in that block where you said on your neighbors. That really doesn't look like it has all that much bedding feature, but if it's real thick, like you said, it probably does.
Will your neighbor let you park up there at all, you think?
I've asked the previous owner, and he was fine with it. I think I could get permission from this one to let me go in and walk around that way.
Yeah.
And then if I hunt up here, I park over here at the grain bins and then walk across to the fence row there. And
well, you could probably go in from the grain bins, right?
Yeah,
To
I
go
could.
yeah, just a little bit longer walk, right?
Yeah.
Get you an e-bike.
Huh?
Get you an e-bike.
Yeah, that would work.
Dan can hook him up with one of them Chinese ones they're always trying to send him.
I get more of them people trying to send me those bikes using the videos. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's insane.
So do you another as far as staying locations, Dan? I know you talked. I got one there. You talked about putting one over in here, and maybe even one there.
Well, I wouldn't put it right there. I'd probably put it back further. I'm just saying I'd look there and see if there's bedding, and if there is, I'd go up above that someplace, like probably where that creek is, that low point.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd have a hard time getting in there. You'd have to circle your way in there.
Yeah. I got one of the neighbors. He hunts. He's got a shooting house right over here. And then what do you think about, so a lot of times if I'm sitting here and they don't come out over here, sometimes they come out here in a food plot there, or they'll come out of this woods, shoot through and go on the top side there, and then come back and go back into there, or come out of this side and do the same way, kind of shoot across these 2 points and get into this woods here. I've thought about putting a stand here if the wind was right, to maybe try to intercept them and not sit there a lot, but just every once in a while, we're at a good wind, try to jump in there once. And what's your opinion on that one?
Yeah, I wouldn't see a problem with it if it's every now and then. I just I would try to really make sure that there's no bedding right in there before you do that. But even if there is, I don't think it would hurt you if it's 1, 2, 3 days out of the year or something. It's a matter of if you overpressure the area, then they won't bed anywhere near there.
Yep. You want me to tell them the experience with unicorn this year?
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah. So it's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, and I don't get to hunt a tremendous amount. I coach a 8th grade boys basketball team and an athletic director for a little Lutheran school, and so I don't get to hunt a whole lot. So this one,
the pressure thing's not really too big of an issue for Adam. He doesn't put a whole lot of pressure on it.
But we in bow season, we were sitting in that stand that I have there, a 2-man stand, me and Cole, a lot of times, and we seen this same buck, which I had him on camera multiple times, and we named him Unicorn because he had a little point that grew out basically in his forehead, in between his brow tines there, and he's really dark chocolate horn deer. But we seen him on camera several times. Well, we sat there, and the first probably 4 out of 5 times we sat there, we seen this buck every 4 out of 5 times we sat there, and he would always be, a lot of times the one evening he come out right over here about 85, 90 yards away, and then the next time we were there, it may have been the next morning, he come out over here somewhere and crossed about 85 yards away from us there. And then I seen him over here the next 2 times I saw him. We're over here about 80. It was always just out of about 80 yards, and couldn't get him in there any closer. But that's the first time I've seen that the same deer like that multiple times in the same area, and I knew he couldn't be. I was talking to Josh about it through the year. Do I keep going in there? Do I wait and just pick the right time and hopefully he gets there? But we never spooked him, never seen us. But I knew he had to be bedding somewhere Now, how close, I don't know. He could have been way back in here technically and walking all the way out. But I got my chance at him. In gun season, he ended up coming from over in here somewhere, walked across there about 85 yards and what ended up happening, I ended up hitting a limb. But when I shot, he didn't even hardly move. He just kind of hopped over there a little bit and was looking the opposite way, and ended up walking off in the woods there. And we looked and didn't find anything, and went back and checked, where I'd shot him, and there was some limbs hanging out there, unfortunately. But that was a kind of a cool experience for me to see that same deer that many times and not spook him until obviously, I shot at him. He didn't like that, and I didn't see him for a while. Of course, we looked pretty hard in there to make sure that it wasn't one of those occurrences where there just wasn't a whole lot of blood.
Right.
And so I didn't see him on camera then for it was a good while. That was towards the end of gun season, but then I got him back on camera maybe a month later or so, and I've seen him a few times since then. But
every deer's got a different temperament. Some of them you bump them once and you never see them again, and some of them walk over, look at you in the tree stand, and eat underneath you.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said in the morning he came out here and went back in here then?
The one time I saw him, the only time I seen him come, well, I guess twice. I think it was that next morning we saw him come. We saw him come out that evening here, and the next morning, somewhere over in here, he come out and walked across here and went back into there. And then that evening when the other 2 or 3 times I saw him in bow season, he was coming out of this side. But then that one evening he come from this way. It was later in gun season, and he come out of that side and came over there. But I'd also been debating with Josh about borrowing one of your guys' stands or one of his stands and putting it up, because you were right, this is really low here, and it's flat for a little bit, and then there's a pretty steep hill that goes up to about into this area. And I thought about getting on the top side here and trying to, go in there once and get a shot at him there early, but I didn't do it. I didn't have the.
That's really one of the keys. We talk about where to put permanent stands on a property like this, but having something mobile where you can just make a shift when you see something like that going on is important. I hunt a 70-acre farm, and I've got stands all over in every little key position. But most often when we kill something big, it's because you see it on a pattern and then you move to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's where your guys' equipment's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Josh,
he was messing with it this evening when he got here.
It's amazing how light it is. I mean, just how light the whole system is.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else on this property we can think about? I'll go through the comments here. If you guys got any questions, make sure you ask them in the comments. Seems like half of our comment section is having surgery or sick right now. The last few weeks, I hope everybody's doing all right. I've lost track of everybody's having surgery or sounds like Dan's still coughing up a lung too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got any other stories? Good stories that we could tell everybody?
For you, I forgot most. I tried to get rid of most.
Remember that time I shot that deer out from underneath you, kind of at that deer drive, when Brian with the bow and arrow?
Oh yeah, yeah. We were doing a deer drive close to Josh's house actually, and it was during bow season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in October.
Yeah, it was in bow season. It narrowed down really, really narrow along the river, and this deer is coming, I mean, just right at me. And I was waiting, and I think I actually was drawn back there, and Josh was over at the side. And next thing I know, here comes this arrow, and he fired one off at it and shot him there in front of me. But I think was that was close to my wedding.
I think it was
It
on
was
your
the
wedding.
weekend-
I
it
think
was
it was
the
the weekend
wedding.
of your wedding because Brian was here and he wanted to go deer hunting. That's why we started doing
Yep,
deer drives to
that's
try to
right.
get Brian a deer.
Because I had to leave,
Yeah.
and you guys looked for it, and you ended up finding it.
Yeah, we found it. Yeah. Yeah, it's laying back. No, it's not laying back here. It's on the wall back here, just a European mount.
Yeah,
It looked a lot bigger whenever I shot it than what it ended up
Yeah.
being. Because I remember you were kind of like, I'm kind of glad you got that
shot it,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like a 115-inch 8-pointer. But when they're on the ground running towards you and they're like at 10 yards, they look a lot bigger than that, you know.
There's nothing wrong with a 115-inch 8-pointer.
No.
But he did. It was coming right at me, and he quick trigger over there got him.
You know, I took my kid out rat slayer once when he was really young. This goes back over, probably 24, 25 years ago. So, I mean, he was probably like 5 or 6 or something. And he had this little red bow, and he was shooting the yard. And late summer, I was going to go out and check for some deer along some crop fields. And he wanted to come along, and he was begging to come. And I said, sure. And then he's got his bow, and I'm like, I'll leave that here. And he's like, no, I want to bring it. What if we see a deer? And I was like, okay, go ahead. And he brings it along, and we're walking through these crops, and it was farm crops. I think it was like cabbage or something. It was really tall. It's like as tall as my waist. And we're walking along this, and I see a deer coming out. I'm like, hey, there's a deer coming. Get down once. And they come out, and they come really close to us, like 20 yards from us. I'm forgetting all about that kid having a bow. And it wasn't even deer season. All of a sudden, this arrow goes flying over my shoulder, and he missed that deer's neck by. And I was damn glad he missed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Rob was asking, we kind of covered this already, but he said, do you think you should abandon the permanent stands and mobile hunt the property?
I don't think so. I think if a guy has a property, he should have permanent stands in key positions, but he should also have a mobile setup. That would be my opinion on it.
Yeah. And you're always like, time is an issue for you. So you're always like running late or, you only have a last hour and a half of daylight or whatever.
Coming from practice or wherever, it always seems like we're in a rush.
The only difference between a mobile stand and a permanent stand is that permanent stands tend to get overhunted. And that's all you have to do is keep in mind how often you hunt it and be careful about just hunting it when you have the right winds and the right conditions and stuff. I mean, sounds like you're not overhunting the property.
And I think that one all the way to the north up there by that first bedding area that we talked about, my caution there has been it just has to be the right wind, to get up there and do that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to put up more permanent stands on some of my private. We've been mobile hunting them the last several years, and
think about the spots you got that are like right up against bedding. You're 50, 60 yards from them, and you're sneaking in there. Why would you want to take the chances of making noise setting up a stand? Even if you hunt it once a year, why not just put a $40, $50 and just leave it there locked in a tree?
Yep.
Right. Yep. Dan, do you ever hunt those big double ladder stands like Adam has? Adam has those double ones for him and his son.
Yeah, I've got one over by Dave's that I sit in every now and then, but it's more of an observation stand than a hunting stand. Kind of take a nap up in that thing.
Yeah.
It was just, it's just something that I think somebody hunted with Dave once and gave it to him or something. And so we just put it to use.
And those are the ones that I've got, with having the young kids and that. That's what I've got back over there on the fence row and in that point that you like, or that corner that you like so well. They're both 2-man stands. But
the biggest problem I've had with ladder stands is there's a couple of them at Dave's property. And the reason we didn't just toss them in the trash is because Dave had cancer and he was having a hard time climbing trees. So he kind of liked them. But I've noticed that they're awfully noisy. I have a hard time getting into them quiet when it's calm out. They're creaking and stuff, and where the joints are, it's pretty tough. Where I like a chain on stand or a lock on stand better because I think you can get it secure and quiet. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with a ladder stand. It's just if you're real close to them, a lot of times they make noise in the joints, especially if they've been out there a while and they start to rust and settle. And
someone asked about what crops are usually planted in the fields. Have you like noticed it's corn and beans, right?
Yeah, it's corn and beans, and it definitely makes a difference where the corn is, especially after they harvest. You know, if they've you got the fields up there.
1 second.
And they've got it rotated typically.
Okay, you'd probably get some pretty good movement into that upper field when that's corn in the season.
And that's what, depending on which one of these fields is corn, is where they file into the most. You know, when this is corn, they're filing out of this area up in here, and then coming out back here into that cornfield. Sure. After it's harvested. In the same way, if this is in beans and this is corn, then they seem to be filing out of these areas into the cornfields, and they really like those, you know, late after it's harvested there. And then the bean fields when they're younger and you know, smaller there, they go to them quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
But it gets rotated. It gets rotated corn and beans on all these fields, different years depending on. And there's 3 different farmers. There's a farmer that farms this one, a different farmer farms this one, and then there's a different farmer that farms these 3. So it does vary. You may think that you're going to get corn in one of them, and they change it to beans. And but
yeah, a lot of people are asking in the comments, like, how many times a year do you hunt, Adam? Like, probably less than 12.
Yeah, that's probably the max I would think that I get to go out, just because of all the coaching and the games and especially on weekends, all the tournaments and that. But
and out of that 12, you're sometimes on other properties too, right?
That's sometimes. Sometimes I used to hunt a lot of different properties, and I didn't hunt these hardly at all because they were close to the house, and I was always like, you know, there's not that many deer around here. I can go, you know, drive to. I had the luxury of being able to hunt a lot of acres from one of my buddies that's a large farmer in the area, and I would go hunt those all the time. And then they kept telling me, everyone, like, you really need to go behind your mom and dad's, or, you know, go over there. There's a lot of deer there. And once I started hunting back in here, then I've kind of switched over, and I've hunted these a lot of times, different stands, you know, different areas there. But I hunt this a lot more now than I used to.
This is a decent tip for people that, you know, don't have food plot equipment and stuff. He was asking if you could pay a farmer to leave some standing corn or beans on those fields at all.
As far as me?
Yeah, he was asking about you, but that is something you can do. Like, some farmers will sell you an acre of corn to leave up, and if you don't have time to plant things or whatever the case may be.
And that sometimes is a problem for me, is just finding time to go out and put the food plots in, or you know, the day that I'm available, it may be really wet, and I can't get out there and do it at times. But they possibly would be willing to do that, like you said, to buy that off of them if they're getting the same amount as what they would be,
right,
to market there.
Right.
A small amount. They're not going to sell you a whole lot, but
yeah, right. I think we got through all the questions that were on there. We've been on here over an hour or two, so. Is there one there?
Oh, that's part of mine.
Does Adam film his hunts? Nope. We used to film a little bit when we were younger.
When you do it and come out and do it.
Yeah, I have some footage that's gotten lost. We had some footage when I was younger. I can't find it anymore.
We did
some doe kills and stuff, but I don't know
and
where
it's
it
not
all
something
is.
I wouldn't necessarily do. I just don't have the equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. We used to carry cameras around all the time, though. It seemed like we always had those old cameras that had tapes in it. Then I'd bug Drew to edit it for me when I was little because I didn't know how to edit. All right. Are you good, Dan? You got anything else you want to cover on the property?
I'm great.
I think I think we covered it all. I hope everybody got something out of it tonight. And sorry for it being kind of an off night. We'll get back on schedule next week for sure. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for coming on, Adam. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully, I didn't ruin it too bad.
No, you're good. You'll be looking maybe if we can get the chance. Me and Adam we'll walk around and film some of these spots that Dan pointed out, and maybe we'll make a video out of it, and I can kind of incorporate this and we'll put it on the Beast. Oh, golly, I almost forgot, Rich. Trail cameras on this property. We got to talk about that first before we leave. Sorry, Dan. Dan was probably he's like, man, I'm gonna go to bed. Let's thank you, Rich. I'm glad you put that on here. I hope nobody left. Let's see here. All right, we're back on it. Where do you got cameras at right now, Adam?
Where do I have them at?
Yeah.
I've got one right over here at this onto the food plot there. I put one. I've got one back right in there.
Are those cell cams or regular cams?
I got one cell cam, and then the rest are regular. I had one down over here, and I think that was those three right there, and then one back in the woods right in here, and then I had one over on this side, right around in there on that property.
Is that open enough to have a food plot on that side?
And that's I plan to, if I can, right on the other side of this creek here. You can see this area right there.
Yeah.
That's open enough to put a food plot. My intention this year is to put a clover or clover chicory mix in that as well, like I had over here. But
how would you go about putting trail cameras up, Dan?
I would probably put them at the entrances into the fields and the heavy trails and stuff, but I'd probably be real careful about checking them too much. Mm-hmm. So that's why I asked if he was using cell cams. So if they're regular cams, I would be just checking them as I walk past them, kind of thing. If I was back there hunting, I'd take the card and swap it, and then when I got back, I'd check them and see if anything changed. And because of that, a lot of the intel you get out of them helps you more for the next year than it does the year you hunt. But that's just the nature of things,
Yeah.
Cell cams help you more now, and regular cams help you in the future because they show you patterns. Because those patterns seem to repeat year after year after year.
Yeah, that's like seeing that unicorn deer you're talking about so many times. He's probably going to do the same thing next year, or be on the same kind of patterns at least.
Yeah, we've seen it right down to the date with the same deer. Like year after year, he shows up within a day or so of the same time he was on the camera the year before.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Do you have any cameras up here at all?
I didn't this last year. I wasn't quite as on it as well with my cameras this year, but I used to have one when I put one up here right in this area where this edge of this woods comes out, so I can get anything traveling along the fence row and then coming out into that field there.
Yep.
But Dan, do you think putting one up in, on a good trail up in here somewhere that you just, like you said, I don't look at hardly at all during the season?
Especially if you got one main trail that they're coming out on, where all those trails come together would probably be a good idea. Yeah. Matter of fact, that'd probably be a good area for a cell cam if you got it into that stuff a little bit, like right on the trail where they come out of the bedding. Because then you can monitor it from a distance, and you can know when to go sit to stand or whatever that you end up putting up there, and otherwise just kind of leave them be until the pictures start rolling in. And you say, okay, it's time to get up there.
Yep. All right, I'm content now. We talked about the cameras. I almost forgot. All right, everybody, have a good night, and we'll talk to everybody early next week.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.